Vamos digo Uruguata. Abebe. Para tudo. 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 Láti lẹ̀.
Ìgbà tí ó lára púpọ̀ tí mi bá ṣiṣẹ́ tó mo ṣáàjì ń bá ṣiṣẹ́ mi ìṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ máa bá ṣiṣẹ́ mo ti lọ bí i 5 months lọ́dẹ̀ tó sọ́dídì ló kọ́ sọ fún wọn pé òun wá gòdì so ó dẹ̀ ṣe sákìlì yẹn gan ló sọ fún mi fún òun wá gòdì tó ló travel ìyẹn 2021 nílé à 2021 ó travel lọ sí ìgbà tó dé padà mo tún ti bá ṣiṣẹ́ bóyá bí ọ̀sẹ̀ kan ìgbà yẹn ló sọ fún mi pé òun wá gòdì mo ní kí ló wá ṣẹlẹ̀ tí kò ṣe sọ fún mi pé òun wá gòdì wá jẹ pé ìṣẹ́ ló máa ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ máa sọ fún mi èmi náà sọ fún pé Ọlọ́run máa jẹ́ kó rí ní lágbára Ọlọ́run so after 1 week ó bóyá ó kó àpè tó wá sọ fún mi pé òun ò lówó lọ́fọ́ náà pé tóun bá pè lówó lọ́wọ́ pé òun máa wá pè mí òun máa pè mí lórí fún tó bí mo ṣe stop iṣẹ́ lọ́dọ̀ ẹ̀ so after 1 week ní ti bóyá wá pé nọ́mbà mi kò lọ network so ẹni tó wá mú mi mọ́ ó wá lọ fọlọ́pàá gbé mi yẹn so ibi iṣẹ́ tí mo dẹ̀ máa ń ṣiṣẹ́ night so ibi iṣẹ́ tí mo wá wà lálẹ́ ìjọ yẹn ọ̀rẹ́ mi kò sọ fún mi pọ́lọ́pàá mú un bó ṣe wá fọlọ́pàá gbé mi níbi iṣẹ́ ni ó kò sọ fún mi pé kí n jáde fún òun fẹ́ rí mi kò sọ fún mi pọ́lọ́pàá wà ní ìta tó bí mo ṣáà ṣe jáde síwájú ọsítà tí mo dé ṣiṣẹ́ láì tí mo sùn mo ọlọ́pàá ti gbé mi lọ nìyẹn látàlẹ́ ìjọ yẹn tó wọ́n yẹ ìtumọ̀ sílẹ̀ lè tí mo ti wà ní prison.
ìgbà tó ọlọ́pàá gbé ẹ lọ yẹn tọlọ́pàá gbé tẹ dé station yẹn kí ló ṣé kúmà yẹn tẹ̀lé ọ kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀ station gbà tó
ìgbà tí mo dé station tó ẹ̀rẹ̀mùkẹ́ mo gbára kó tábìlì à ń gbé wa lọ sí kóòtù after 2 days à ń gbé wa lọ sí kóòtù mo sùn station for 1-2 days. tó gbà tó ṣáàgbé wa lọ sí station wọ́n gbé wa lọ sí adájọ́ ṣá béèrè lọ́wọ́ mi pé ó ti tá ọgbà wo ni mo ti ń bá ṣe mo ló ti tó 5 months ó ní ṣé mo máa dá ṣe inú yàrá ẹ̀ mo ní rárá mi dá ṣe inú yàrá ẹ̀ tí mo bá fẹ́ ṣe inú yàrá ẹ̀ ó máa ń pè mí ó máa ń dúró tì mí tí mo fi máa ń ṣe mí dáwọ́ ọbẹ̀ ó jẹ́ sọ fún mi pé òun agbódà àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ náà dẹ̀ wọnú yàrá ẹ̀ kílé tó ṣáàṣì sọ̀rọ̀ adájọ́ yẹn ṣáà sọ pé kò ń ṣèmi ni mo mú gòdì yẹn pé kó ti àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ nínú àbí kó kó àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ wá bóyá ìbẹ̀rù yẹn ló ṣáà kò ṣáà fi kó àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀ wá wọ́n ṣáà fi mí lẹ̀ wọ́n fún mi ní fúráàjì ní kóòtù bíbẹ̀ yẹn bí mo ṣáà ti dé polisi pé kí n máa lọ tó bí mo ṣáà ti dé police station padà pé mo fẹ́ lọ kó àwọn nǹkan mi kí n máa lọ mo ṣáà ti dé bí wọ́n ṣáà ń béèrè lọ́wọ́ mi fún pásítọ̀tì mo ní pásítọ̀tì ó dẹ̀ ní àwọn pásítọ̀tì tá a máa fi ń ṣiṣẹ́ bíbẹ̀ fún sórí dínàbọ̀ a máa fi ń ṣiṣẹ́ bẹ́ẹ̀ pọ́n ni lè fi dá wa dúró tó nígbà tí mo ṣàtọ̀ fún wọn pé mo ní pásítọ̀tì bó ṣe dá mi padà sí prison school jímọ̀ bí àwọn fámìlì mi mú pásítọ̀tì wa tó mo ṣáà pé ẹ̀gbọ́n mi kọ pé ẹjọ́ bá mi mú pásítọ̀tì mi ò nǹkan kan wọ́n ṣáà sọ pé kò sí ìkámà kò sí sáǹpù Libya níbẹ̀ kò sí sáǹpù Libya níbẹ̀ so lọ́jọ́ that means August 31st ní 2010.
ok nẹ́tíwọ́ọ̀kì yóò dáa mọ́ nẹ́tọ́yá ní August kínní mò ń gbọ́ ẹ báyìí. hello network yìí ò dáa mọ́ ọ ní lọ́gọ́sì kínní.
August 31st.
ok.
ní 2021.
ok náà wá ìgbà tó wá dé station ìgbà tó wà bẹ́ẹ̀ fà pé ọ̀rọ̀ passport yẹn kí
wọ́n mú passport yẹn wá
ṣé wọ́n á gbé ọkọ̀ ṣé bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n á gbé ọkọ̀ station yẹn náà fi gbé lọ prison direct.
wọ́n mú passport ẹni yẹn miss kò tètè mú passport yẹn wá tó wọ́n wá gbé mi lọ sí another court pé wọ́n ti fi mí lẹ̀ yẹn o wọ́n wá gbé mi lọ sí another court tó àwọn kóòtù yẹn náà sọ pé passport nìkan mo ṣáà pé ẹnìkan ṣáà mi mú.
wọ́n ṣáà lọ mú passport yẹn wá.
wọ́n ṣáà sọ pé kò sí sáǹpù Libya bẹ́ẹ̀.
pé kò sí sáǹpù pé ìwé ìgbélú nínú rẹ̀ tán pè ní ìkàmà.
ìkàmà pé kò sí bẹ́ẹ̀. tó ibẹ̀ ni adájọ́ yẹn tó ṣe rí wọ́n ti gbé mi lọ sí prison yẹn Jedidas to Saba prison.
Jedidas to Saba prison pé lórí pé kò sí ìwé ìgbélú bẹ́ẹ̀ wọ́n ti da ọ̀rọ̀ kéèsì góòdì yẹn nù.
wọ́n ti kò sí tó lè yẹn bẹ́ẹ̀ torí àwọn.
kò wá mọ́ntì àbí.
wúmà yẹn ò bá mi lẹ́jọ́ mọ́ ibùkún kò mọ̀ bóyá mo ṣe wá ń prison àbí mi ṣe wá ń prison.
bàtà wá gbọ́dé prison yẹn ní ìsètò wá wà prison yẹn kí wá ni wọ́n kọ́ tẹ̀lé prison yẹn kí ni prison yẹn gẹ́gẹ́ tó ń bọ́ fà ní.
wọ́n bá mi farú pé mo gba bàìróòdù wa.
ok that's me pé illegal minigrant kò dẹ̀ sí bí èsì illegal minigrant kò sí jésù gan tó dánwò ní àgbẹ̀ illegal minigrant ni.
pé mi ní pé pásítọ̀tì mi ò ní ká má lórí pé kí ló dé tí mi ṣe ní ká má tó wọ́n ṣàgbé mi lọ sí kóòtù Medina court ìyẹn high court.
ok.
so wọ́n ṣàṣọ fún mi pé ṣé mo ní pásítọ̀tì mo ní pé wọ́n ti gbà wọ́n níbo ni mo gbà wá mo ní ọ̀nà sábà ni mo gbà.
Bàìróòdù kò sẹ́ni tí ó mọ̀ pé ẹni máa gbà bàìróòdù wọ Libya ẹlọ́tọ̀ tó kúrò wà Libya náà bàìróòdù náà wọlé.
wọ́n ṣá béèrè lọ́wọ́ mi pé kí ni mo fẹ́ mo ní wọ́n jọ kan fún mi sílẹ̀ pé èmi náà mò ń bọ̀ ìyá àti bàbá nílé nǹkan kan bẹ́ẹ̀. sọ ẹ̀ẹ̀mejì ni wọ́n ṣá gbé mi lọ sí kóòtù ẹ̀ẹ̀mejì péré yẹn ní àtiwà lọ́kùtọ̀ọ̀bá.
ìgbà tí wọ́n gbé ọ lọ prison ló ń gbé ọ lọ kóòtù lórí ọ̀rọ̀ pásítọ̀tù náà ní báyìí pé ibi tó gbà wọlé kí wọ́n ní kóòtù wá sọ fún wọn kóòtù tó gbé lọ méjèèjì yẹn kí wọ́n sọ fún wọn ìgbé kan ṣe tán.
wọ́n ní kán dìpọ́tì mi lọ sí Nàìjíríà.
ok láti last year láti ní kán dìpọ́tì.
ó ti fẹ́ pé 2 years since that means 1 year 8 months now.
ok ẹ̀yin gbàdúrà wọn ní kán dìpọ́tì láti wọn á gbé padà síbẹ̀ pé kán dìpọ́tì ẹ̀ kí ni wọ́n ní process tẹ̀ wá ń ṣe lórí deport.
so àwọn embassy náà là ń pè wọ́n láwọn máa wá àwọn máa wọ́ tẹ̀ wọ́n wá ní Ramadan wọ́n wá ní April 2021. tàtẹ̀sí ní òkùnkùn pé wọ́n tẹ̀ máa wá wá wọ́n láwọn ń bọ̀ àwọn ń bọ̀ tí gbogbo ọdún yẹn fi tán àárín wọn. tí gbogbo ọdún yẹn ti fi tán wọn àárín wọn so wọn ṣàtúnṣe pé ká ṣe sùúrù pé tọ́mátì selection tán Nàìjíríà páwọn ìjọba wa máa bá wa gbé kalẹ̀ so wọn tó ti selection tán àtúrí nǹkan kan wọn àtọ fún wọn ṣàpadà wá ní yẹ yìí báyìí wọn ní wípé ká wá máa já tíkẹ́ẹ̀tì ní 3,500.
ní Libyan dinars ní 3,500 kí a máa já tíkẹ́ẹ̀tì ẹ tó wà lẹ́wọ̀n láti bí ọdún méjì ló fẹ́ rí owó.
pé Nàìjíríà náà ti fẹ́ sẹ́ndì owó yẹn wọ́n máa sẹ́ndì
600,000 ló jẹ́ ní Nàìjíríà money wọ́n ní kékeré máa wá wá kókó sí fúláìtì ilé àgbẹ̀.
wọ́n ní pé ṣiṣẹ́ ń bí bàyà wá tá a wà ní ojoojúmọ́ náà fi ń kọ́ ọmọ Áfíríkà wá sí bíbà tó fi ń kọ́ ọmọ Nàìjíríà wá sí bíbà wọ́n lè kó èèyàn 10 wá wọ́n lè kó èèyàn 12 wá èèyàn 20 bọ́n ṣe ń kó èèyàn wá nìyẹn àwa Nàìjíríà tá a wà ní bíbà àtó 3,000.
láì mọwọ́ láì mẹsẹ̀ tẹ́pọ́n kàn kó wá ní àọ̀ tí ó sì pẹ́ ní kéèsì.
bọ̀ kéèsì oníkálukú ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ẹni tí aṣẹ́wó gbé wá ọ̀tọ̀ ẹni tí bọ̀ àwa tá a jẹ́ pé pásítọ̀tì tá a ní kéèsì ọ̀kan a ti tọ́ 100.
ok tẹ́sí wọ́n ti gírántì pé kí wọ́n wá kí ẹ́mbásì wá kó yín tẹ́sí gírántì pé kí ẹ́mbásì wá kó yín
ẹ́mbásì ṣàdúró ojoojúmọ́ la fi ń dì sọ wọ́n ní pé sáwọn làwọn fẹ́ já tíkẹ́ẹ̀tì fún wọn pé ìjọba kò gbé plane kalẹ̀ káwọn ìjọba kan jọ ti torí tọ́lọ́ kan wò wá ṣe láàánú ìyà ń jẹ wá kò sóúnjẹ kò sómi kò sí kọ̀ọ̀kan.
mo gbọ́ dà pé mo gbọ́ pé wọ́n ní pé ẹ lọ́mọ níta pé ẹ lọ́mọ níbi bí.
mo ní ọmọ wọ́n yẹ ìtàn títí tí mo ti rọ́mọ mi lásán.
ọmọ ọdún mélòó lọmọ yẹn wà kí ẹ tó fi tó ìjọba tó ṣẹlẹ̀.
ó wà ní 1 year 6 months.
báwo ni a ṣe ń gbèrò ọmọ ìbá sọmọ yẹn sí ṣé ìlú olúwa ló lẹ Libya iná.
inú ilẹ̀ Libya iná ló wà o inú ilẹ̀ Libya iná ló wà kò sí kò sí kọ́tẹ̀ jẹ́ pé ẹni tó tiẹ̀ ń bá mi.
ẹ mọ̀ ní ìsìn nígbà tó ń sọ ní ìsìn pé àwọn embassy náà sọ pé kán lọ wá 3,500 dinars equivalent of bí 600,000-500,000 Nigeria money kẹ́ tó lè kúrò níbi ibẹ̀ yẹn nǹkan tá ń sọ nìyẹn.
wọ́n ní kájà ẹni tó lóòótọ́ àwọn tó rí fámìlì wọn tó ń tiraka náà bóyá déèyàn bí gbogbo èèyàn tó ṣe lọ.
àwọn tó ń sanwó yẹn wọ́n kó wọn kó wọn.
wọ́n ṣe gbogbo èèyàn ló rówó ẹ̀.
ara àwọn tó san bẹ̀ wọ́n kó wọn kó bẹ̀.
àwọn tó sanwó.
pẹ̀lú tẹ̀ san ní ìsìn wọn àti ìkó yẹn ara bọ̀ lẹ́yìn ìgbà tó sọ pé lẹ́yìn ìgbà tó wá yẹn tán wá sọ fún yín pé kẹsànwó yẹn ní ìsìn wọn máa ń wá pé bóyá kán wá chẹ́kì àlàáfíà yín bóyá kán kó nǹkan wá àbí nǹkan kan.
ẹ̀ẹ̀kan náà ṣì mú nǹkan wá fún wa indomie mélòó indomie ọ̀yìn méjì èèyàn kọ̀ọ̀kan sóhun la fẹ́ máa jẹ ní 1 year 8 months ni.
ìyẹn láti nǹkan tá à ń sọ nísìnyí pé àwọn Libya yìí àwọn tó jẹ́ pé olórí prison yẹn nìsín wọ́n ti fi yín lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ kan wá kó yín kan deport yín.
wọ́n ti fi wá dà owó Nàìjíríà embassy ló wà sí owó àwọn ìjọba wa nìkan náà ló wà kó wa.
nǹkan tó wá ṣẹlẹ̀ ni pé kí lẹ fẹ́ jẹ́ kí àwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà gan tó yẹ pé ká sọ pé ìjọba ò ṣe wà tọ́ kí lẹ fẹ́ jẹ́ káwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà gẹ́gẹ́ kan ṣe fún yín àwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà gẹ́gẹ́.
kí wọ́n ṣàánú fún wa ní òkòrò tọ́lọ́mọ lára o a pọ̀ ní bíbá ibùdó pàṣẹ.
ṣe bí orílẹ̀-èdè wo ni ẹ ti ń sọ̀rọ̀ orílẹ̀-èdè wo.
Libya láti.
ok prison yẹn kí lorúkọ prison yẹn.
Jẹ̀dídà Kusaba.
torí tẹ̀ nǹkan tó máa fẹ́ ràn yàn lọ́wọ́ náà wọ́n máa mọ ibi tó ń ti wá wọ́n dẹ̀ máa mọ ibi tó ń ti ṣẹlẹ̀ wọ́n máa mọ prison yẹn pé káwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà bá fẹ́ ràn yàn lọ́wọ́ wọ́n máa
bẹ́ẹ̀ni ẹ̀kọ́ jọ kọ́ ṣàánú fún wa ọkọ̀ kó ro títọ́ lọ́ mú wa lára láì jalè láì pààyàn 1 year 8 months ó ní 2 years sí wà ń bíbá ó ní 8 years sí wà ń bíbá lóòótọ́ kéèsì oníkálukú ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ní òkè oníkálukú ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀.
ẹ̀mọ̀ kò tí ẹ̀ bá ní kéèsì ọ̀tọ̀ ẹ̀ tí ó ní kéèsì tó wá lẹ́wọ̀n fún bí 1 year 8 months tó yẹ pé ó ti súnmọ́ 2 years ẹ̀mọ̀ pé tó bá gbé drọ́ọ̀gì ní ìsọ́wọ́n àgbẹ̀ drọ́ọ̀gì ló gbé bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣé ń tẹ́ pé wọn à fún lẹ́wọ̀n wọn à sọ pé kinní kan ó kàn wá bí láti 1 year 8 months kò sí wàhálà ẹ má wọ̀rí àti gbọ́ nǹkan tẹ̀sán ti bí ẹ má wọ̀rí ẹ ti gbọ́.
ẹjọ́ torí tọ́lọ́ o ẹjọ́ gbogbo nàìjíríà lápapọ̀ kan ẹ̀bù wa kọ́ ṣàánú fún wa o kọ́ ṣàánú fún ọ ilé àtọ̀nà tiwọn náà ní dàrú àtijọ́ àti mu náà là ń wá káàkiri kọ́lọ́ má jẹ́ ká pé nǹkan tó máa jẹ wá ni. Ok,
kò sí wàhálà ẹ má wọrí a máa wá nǹkan tá a máa ṣe kò sí wàhálà ẹ ti gbọ́ ok a máa gbé bàtà sí yín ok.
ok.
báwo ni ọ̀rọ̀ tó.
UK, some lovely tune this morning, wherever you might be enjoying your day. Well, we are here to also bring you the best in everything that you need to know. Some lovely tune from the Joyful Way Incorporated, a South African one, you know. Music is a universal language, and therefore, even you don't understand it, but the way it's flowing, it makes you move as well. It is Starr Radio UK, and it's now I've got Mr. Olayomi Koiki all the way in our North London studios, and I've got Mr. Frank Davis in the studios here as well. But let's go to the North London studios to have a chat with the one and only Mr. Olayomi Koiki. And let me say, Yomi, good morning.
Well, very good morning to you back in the studio, Mr. Archie. Good morning, Frank. Good morning to the sound engineer, the production team, and likewise the sister broadcast for those that have joined us and those that are also with us on the Starr Radio UK. And as usual, it is just about the 4 days into the month of May, and a very, very interesting month, both here in UK and likewise in Nigeria, as we go into some of the headline in just about a few minutes.
Yes. How are you doing?
Well, a little bit tired. I believe the weather yesterday was a little bit confusing, and that is why, a lot of Nigerians will say, make sure that nobody calls you with the British weather. On my way to the studio, it was a little bit much brighter, but it seems that on my way back home, the weather dropped a little bit, and on getting home, I just had to have something a little bit warm to keep myself, up there. But apart from that, we're up again in the morning as we're following the news of these 13 years old, that eventually killed, some of these colleagues. It shows that the world itself is full of a lot of atrocity. And that is in Belgrade, where a school shooting took place. I was actually getting the news this morning. Very, very sad news. But again, you might think that around the world is sad until you know that closer to home, there's a lot of other sad news as well, which we're going to be discussing as another 40 individuals lost their life to the terrorist attack in Benue State.
Wow. Listeners, wonders will never stop happening. It keeps on happening. And some will make you go, oops, but what do you think? All right, then. Now, let's have, yesterday we had the Niger Voices, and it was quite another wonderful program. It always has been. And for the sake of those who were not on, so just a quick summary of what was discussed, so that next time, you know that if you are not on, you are missing a great deal. But it will be on all the YouTube or the Starr Radio UK platforms and all the other platforms that we are broadcasting on. Over to you, Yomi.
Well, the Starr Radio UK brings up what we call the Niger Voices. This is a program that I've been going for almost some years now, and it's quite a very elaborative and interesting conversation. Yesterday is all about the focusing on Nigeria as well, but in the last almost 72 hours till now, which has not yet been debunked, the president-elect son, Seyi Tinubu, a firm was, coming into the news where about almost $10 to $11 million was paid for a property somewhere in St. John's Wood. There's nothing wrong. If he has the money to buy such a property, but the question around it is that the property in question was seized by the federal government of President Muhammadu Buhari through another corrupt individual, in line with the former Minister of Petroleum, Dezeni. The question then is, how do we get rid of the corruption, and how do we stop, some of these, corruption going on was part of the discussion. We also discussed, what Tinubu will be facing. It was in Rivers State yesterday where I listened to a bit of what he was discussing there. But the problem I had for him is not just about, the insecurity, but we're also going to be discussing, as the headline this morning is popping into our face, it will take Nigeria 40 years to pay back, the loan. So if you have missed the Niger Voices, you can watch it back again yesterday. And likewise, I was celebrating on the show 41 years that a man of humanity, a man that had his own role played up to his death in 1982, and that is none but only my only dad. 41 years ago yesterday, every third of the month of May is when the family remembers him. And the question I ask myself is, how many Nigerians, in his own age group will be alive today? I'm probably comparing what Nigeria was when they were born in the 1930 up to those that are still alive. But we do know that after the independence, there was a lot of boom in Nigeria. Money was flashing all over the place. You could get to UK without a visa. But today, as many people wants to get to UK, but you have to apply for the visa, because my dad was in and out of the UK, as much as I could remember. Marks and Spencer was one of his favorite shopping mall. But as many of his age group today are struggling, because the country has turned around to what they probably never expected.
Well, listeners, if you missed out on the Niger Voices, that was what was discussed. But there's a lot more. This is just a summary of it. So just go to the Starr Radio UK social media platforms and then just enjoy the rest of it from there. It is Starr, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, in the London studio. Mr. Olayomi Koiki here with me in the South Studios, Mr. Frank Davis and Archie, and we are bringing you updates from Nigeria on the morning show. Okay, so now interestingly, you were talking about your dad who passed 41 years ago, and we were looking at what the economy was like, their way of life and everything. Now we think that advancement has taken place because 41 years, if you look at the advancement that we're seeing now. But if the country is now going to take another 40 years to be able to actually, the country, to pay off the 23 trillion naira overdraft that the CBN has given to the federal government, then what hope do we have for the next generation? Yomi.
Well, things was moving, in the hope that maybe today is not what it used to be. I mean, if I play back to, I never met him in person, but, for the fact that, he was well known within his own little, congregation, his own network. He was, he played a lot of role as a president of one of the favorite club in Nigeria, then known, not a football club, but a social gathering club known as the Constant Starr. Like I said, if I look at the life that my dad lived and compare that with his age group today, the question then is, how did Nigeria got to where we are today? And the whole reason for that is because of the system that did not prepare for the next generation. And some of those generations are we that will end up have to pay, through our nose so that we can be able, to survive in Nigeria. I mean, it will take 40 years, like we said, for us to pay back the loan. As we speak today, even though it's just about 26 or 25 days, literally before President Muhammadu Buhari will be handing over to, the president-elect, if all goes as planned with the tribunal, there is already outrage as the Senate has again approved Buhari 22.7 trillion extra budgetary spending. I don't know what he wants to do with that in the next 26 days, but it seems that Buhari has a lot to do before he's going to complete his tenure. But 40 years repaying back, it is nothing wrong when you borrow money, but the problem is if the money has not been used properly, then everybody would have to cough up something out of it. So this is the Starr Radio UK. The Senate yesterday abandoned its previous hardline stance and approved the conversion to a 40-year bond of the 23.72 trillion that the federal government on appropriate expenditure that is funded by the Central Bank of Nigeria, the CBN, through its ways and means window. Whatever that means will be understandable by those, in economics. President Buhari last year wrote to the National Assembly trying to get an approval the amount alongside a fresh 1 trillion naira he planned to take from the window, bringing the total value earmark for securitization to 23.72 trillion for the conversion to a 40-year tenure bond price at 9%.
Well, listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. It is your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. We got Frank here, and he try his best to analyze such things. Let me come to you, Frank. Good morning.
Archie, good morning, and good morning to our listeners as well.
How are you doing?
Strong. Waiting for the king.
Strong and stable. Well. Good. Now, we're talking about indebtedness of countries. We're talking about loans that we go in for. And as Yomi did explain there, he said that there's nothing wrong with taking a loan. I mean, if you're taking a loan to invest it in something that is profitable, that maybe even now, 10 years, 20 years, you're not going to benefit from it, but 30 years thereafter, you see that posterity are going to benefit from it, then it's okay. But looking at the debt 23.7 trillion naira. Okay, that is overdraft only. So when are we going to see a balance? And is there any hope for the next generation at all?
Actually, have you heard of the word debt trap?
They are stuck in the debt. They cannot make any.
Basically, it's a cycle. I mean, not to only talk about Nigeria, but look at Ghana. Yesterday, about almost 750 million.
Yeah.
I mean, again, was approved in Parliament. Now, what it is, you are in debt. You are looking to make certain obligations.
Yeah.
A lot of times, we have collateralized our sources of income. So, if you take Ghana, for instance, you have the GET fund that has been collateralized, which means that any new monies that go to GET fund, the ability to use that GET fund to fund infrastructure and other things has already been sold out. So before the money arrives, it's gone
already
to
spent.
So you have all those kind of things that are happening. Therefore, it shrinks your pipeline through which the revenue comes in. Before the revenue get to your main pipeline, which comes to finance your budget, is be taken away by the collateralization of some of these things. Now you get to a point. If you look at Ghana, take Ghana Gas Company for instance, it's a classic example of what debt can do. We use almost $1 billion to be able to put out that structure. As we speak now, it's one of the most profitable government institutions in Ghana. It's paid for itself.
Okay.
That's what I mean. If you borrow to invest, then you are on a good, because business can fail.
Yeah.
Should the business, let's give and take, 50% of the business succeed, you're going to pay that debt back. But what we've seen, they call it budgetary support. Budgetary support. They borrow into a common pot and then they use it for it. So if you take loans that were approved yesterday, they said they are approving a loan to deal with agriculture, innovation or something for food security. Actually, we've been talking about food security for how many years now? Since 1980s. Since when we had that dry season, then we started talking about food security. Akufo-Addo came and said, Nigerians, sorry, I'm using Ghana as an example. We're talking about what they call planting for food and jobs. What will be more secured in terms of food security than delivering on that promise that, look, we have arable lands. The youth are going to be encouraged into farming. We've voted this amount of money into it, and this is the evidence that, look, this program is work. 7 years down, almost 7 years down the line, we're still importing tomatoes, although we still have arable land, and we still have what they call one village, one dam. The concept of one village, one dam was to make sure that we can farm throughout even the dry season. What is happening? You see, because we put politicians, what is happening in Nigeria, I'm not surprised. How would they fund the next budgets if they don't do that? But we need to step back and understand the mindset of the people we're dealing with. Politics has become so attractive and is seen as an investment. The moment people begin to see politics and political office as an investment, similar to what you do if you're an entrepreneur, you go and take out the risk, go and do everything that you have to do, steady, do your research, put it first. Sometimes it takes years before the profit begins. Sometimes you dig, just like foundation, you dig deep down before you start coming out, leveling up, then you build up. That's what the entrepreneurs do. That's what businesses do. That's why they go for loans and other things. In our case, politically, we see it's an investment. The investment is to lie about what you're doing, your association with those in power already, and then how you actively participate in a power, in basically political party that might win power. And once you're able to step in there, your investment now begins to yield. And that's why when they see every project that they see is a potential to make money. They have to repay themselves. They have to store for their next generation. And so you ask yourself, for all these trillions that Nigeria has borrowed, what is there to show that we have invested this money to secure the future of the generation that is coming? 40 years, someone down who has just been birthed, right? What have they profit? What is that? Probably even they are giving birth to, there's no even a hospital in the area. There's even no school in the area. The mom might have been taken on the back of a bicycle to the nearest hospital. So these are their crimes for where they are located, for not being politically correct or connected. They have to continuously pay their debt. Actually, we are debt trapped. We are in a trap. We can't go.
We can't go forward. We can't come backwards.
Yeah.
But Yomi, what are Nigerians saying? Because we sit here, we look at it and look at the economy and everything here, and we know that these people, I mean, they are always being questioned about what they are doing, policies that they are putting across, and all that stuff. But when it comes to Nigerians, at times, I don't know, we have very learned people. I mean, you go across the globe. I mean, you have people from the West Africa region, area, Nigeria, very learned people. How do they see the whole thing? Are they, like Frank is saying, it's a debt trap? A debt trap? Are they seeing it that way, or they think that, oh well, this man Tinubu is going to come, God willing, if everything goes the way that he wants, and then everything is going to be fine. Whether it's going to cause miracles or do something, we're not very sure of it.
Well, let's first, get the full understanding of the ways and means. We've been able to get one of our listeners, on the sister broadcast, Comrade Shegun Ono, here in UK, listening to Starr Radio UK, and he has said, ways and means actually means the central bank just printing money if they cannot borrow from the foreign banks or the local bank. It went on to also say that ways and means printing money by the central bank, that means inflation, and that also means this basement of your currency. Naira, day 2,000 naira to $1 very soon if they don't stop printing. So that gives us a background understanding of ways and means. So it seems that what Buhari is doing is just print us 1 trillion naira and put that into the economy, and eventually it comes back. But the question you asked has got to do with what is the reaction from Nigerians when it comes to the debt of Nigeria. And the only way we can gauge that is to look at, I mean, when I saw this headline, which has been in circulation, as I just, popped into the social media right now, and I'm going to be giving you what one of the papers says as well. Nigeria to spend the next 40 years repaying controversial 23.72 trillion naira. But the reaction, varies. So let's look at some of those reactions. But the engineer quickly wants to give us what the headline is saying. As a lot of Nigerians, both home and abroad, will probably not be alarmed, but just a little bit, asking the same question, how do we resolve, this stagnant of, money? And you can see right there, that is right there behind us there, as we have it in the graphs right behind us. So the reaction, let me read what some of the comment is saying. According to @Niguan, I am sure for the next 40 years, Buhari and his cabinet would not be alive, so technically they have inherited our grandchildren's debt. The worst part of it is that history is not forget this evil which they did to Nigeria and Nigerian. We will not forgive. Engineer Ali say, Winners and Co. House of Shiloh says, may God Almighty have mercy upon our beautiful made country with leadership which has landed us into a country owing debt. So you can tell that the reaction, Dr. Bali says, but if you're willing to increase your profit by at least 80%, then you should be in my private group coaching. It isn't for everyone only. This one is probably, selling something out there. So you can tell that the reaction this morning on the debt of Nigeria is one. And I'm also looking at the network news in Nigeria. This was in April when they were saying that Tinubu's biggest challenge is Nigerians' debt profile and how he will fund all the projects from his manifesto. He should prepare a budget for 2024 and address how he will finance the deficit of 11 trillion. This was discussed, on April 26 in Nigeria. And again, if you look under what the commentators are saying there, those that are, the real commentators on the social media network, having too many expectations from someone would never address you as presidential candidate. No worry, it will soon dance to that. If you take me off for just about 30 seconds, then I'll be back on again.
Okay, listeners, just bear with us. Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Let me have another chat with Frank whilst we getting Mr. Olayomi Koiki back on. Now, interestingly, do you think that it's the West or the advanced countries who are causing us this harm?
Actually, to a large extent, yes and no. Because let's assume that the advanced countries are causing all this. I mean, how do we explain what our leaders are doing? The broad light robbery that we see on a daily basis. I don't think the advanced countries will continuously tell you to inflate your contracts by 40%. I don't think they will tell you to deliberately collapse your opponent's business when they don't do that. I don't think they will deliberately come and tell you, even if they've told you that, what is your objectives of you being politics and what controls your thinking? If you fall back to why we became independent, what basically we push or what we aspire to be as Africans, those objectives are still there. The question we should then be asking is, with what you're doing, are we meeting the objectives we set for ourselves as a country from the day we struggled? Probably our great-grandfathers started fighting for independence. If the answer is no, then we need to understand why. If you take a typical officer in, let's say, Nigeria, is bribery collection part of what we declared that we are independent or our independent can take? Because if you are a police officer and you collect bribe, knowing that the truck that is coming has no brake lights, they have no hazard warning lights, but they have timber and speeding, and accidents that will occur are part of what you call it. Yes, accident will occur, but if you take a bribe, and I call it a part of an accomplice in that matter, whatever comes in. At the time of the independence, we were not told that you should, we'll get freedom and have freedom of taking bribes. So that's not what we were told. Again, if you're a minister and all you care about is how to finance, we did not see this type of monocracy called democracy coming. Democracy driven by money. We did not see at independence. If you have told those who fought for Nigeria independence that there will be a day that they will go to vote and people will be killing each other, that the security men who fought, who took arm to drive the British away, that we're going to fight them off, will now become agents of bribe collection to facilitate carnage on their own people. Those who fought for independence will tell you those were not part of our vision. But actually, this is where we are. So, the global structure of trade relationship is not something that favors that. But at the end of the day, how many times do we sell to Nigeria? The tension between Nigeria and Benin, to a point where cement produced in Nigeria cannot enter Benin easily. Why do we do that to ourselves? But we are happy for the Chinese to dump theirs there. Are you getting me? So, look, we take excuse in what is happening with the West. I do believe they do, but internally we still have a long way to go.
A long way to go. That's what Frank is saying. But do you think we will get there? Is a question that I'm posing. It is updates from Nigeria, 11:29 from the House of London with Mr. Olayomi Koiki in the North London studios. I'm actually here in the South studios with Mr. Frank Davis. Now, Yomi, let me come back to you. Now, I can't account for 6 trillion naira ground rent, as SGF Fashola tells Senate. Now, this is not 2 million. This is not 10 million. You're talking about 6 trillion naira.
Yeah.
What just swallowed by snakes or some monkeys stole it?
I got this back.
Yeah. Well, Nigeria is full of different drama depending on how you wake up on the bed, because sometimes you could drink ogi. I don't know what you call it in Ghana. oka in Igbo language, and some of us will probably order pizza from UK, which is using the free flow money from the corrupt system. I can't account for 6 trillion. First and foremost, who is Fashola? Fashola is a well-known former governor of Lagos State, 2 times, is the current minister for minister for is the current minister under President Muhammadu Buhari. But during interrogation, or what we can call the hardcore investigation by the Senate that was set up on March 29, is now pointing that they should be asking Boss Mustafa, who is the SGF Works Minister, Babatunde Fashola. It was a one-time also, when after the EndSARS, I mean, we're talking about a few days after the EndSARS, he arrived at the spot of the EndSARS, and after walking around, he found a camcorder, so people called him the James Bond, because they were wondering how come nobody saw this camcorder kept somewhere, but Fashola eventually saw it. Works Minister Babatunde Fashola has urged the Senate Hardcore Committee investigating the 6 trillion unpaid ground rent to seek further information from Boss Mustafa, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Let me talk about the previous Secretary to the Government of the Federation. Babachi, he actually used the money that was meant to be for part of the project, in Nigeria, squandered, and it was removed while Buhari was there on a medical trip. That almost turned to a little bit of fix, because he was actually saying to the Vice President, you have no right to remove me, but he was actually removed. But again, Fashola said when the Senate Art Committee, chaired by Adamu Alairo from PDP in Kebbi, visited the ministry on Wednesday, the Senate on March 29 have set up this hardcore committee to investigate recovered over 6 trillion occur from the non-payment of what I can call ground rent from property owned across the country. The motion was moved by Yusuf from the again PDP Taraba State. So you can see that is the PDP, which is the opposition party, asking where is the 6 trillion. But Fashola says, I am not the right person to ask. You might want to ask the SGF.
I mean, I know when we talk about military, we still have the same old people there. They will come and they can't do anything else. We want to rely on our judiciary, and we cannot rely on them because they have also been compromised. We want to talk about the clergy. They are all compromised. So I don't know what, but at times I look at things and I analyze things, and I wait for the next generation, because I don't know what they're going to be doing unless, again, we go and calabash in hand begging for our sins when it comes to our debt to be forgiven. But what do you think? Well, Starr Radio UK. Let's move on. We don't have time to look at some of the others. Those who rigged the election know they rigged the election. Even the court might not know, but God knows. This one is from Cardinal Olayikan. Wow, so interesting. No, so it's in your head if you rig the election.
I understand what you're saying, but actually, I think we might have to. I do believe God knows and punishment will go, but I think we have actually put a lot of our inactions too much in God. I say this because our leaders know that when it comes to certain things, all we're going to say, God knows, God knows. And that is why they continue to mess up with us, knowing that we will always go back and say, God knows, God knows. I believe drastic actions, peaceful drastic actions are needed if we want to avoid some of these things, because we cannot have a situation where it doesn't matter the means, it doesn't matter the ways, it doesn't matter, whatever you do, once the end justifies, once the end is there, it might not even justify the means. It doesn't justify the means. But you are making it that, yes, I've killed, I've corrupted, I've dried people, I've bought the election, and here I am as a leader, as a president. Once you make, then, what, for me, I keep on saying, I might even tell my children to stop schooling and master the art of committing crime, because if that crime will take them to the top. Are you getting me? Just master the art of committing crime, you know.
Yomi.
Well, as we do know, the Cardinal was having this conversation on the mainstream media in Nigeria this morning, and Frank is right. And sometimes I say maybe the mind and the spirit works together. On my way to the studio yesterday, I was just doing my little bit of live transmission on the Facebook, and I was actually showing some tall building, and I said I prayed to God that this building doesn't collapse. This would normally have happened in Nigeria, but I'm sure in this part of the world, if that building is going to collapse, a lot of people will have to collapse with it as well. Let's look at Lagos State. We are getting continuous collapse of buildings, and we also saw Ajao Estate where property were damaged. Like I said on the studio in Niger Voices yesterday, there's nothing wrong to demolish any property that is built very close to the high tension or is blocking, what is not meant to block because of the pathway. But the question is, who gave the permission in the first place for property to be built? Is it the current governor? I did ask. Is it the previous governor, Ambode, or is it the same Fashola that was there? Somebody gave the approval, but it seems in Nigeria and Africa, we put God and blame everything at God. But let's go straight to the next headline, which is coming from Abuja, as Nigerians, the first batch of Nigerian evacuees have arrived from Sudan. The first batch of Nigerians were evacuated from Sudan have now arrived in the country. And at least, God has not done that. It has been done by, the hard work Nigerian, Air Force that have traveled very close to the region where buses were moved. But we hope that the remaining Nigerians would also be picked up as quickly as possible. And we pray for peace in Sudan, just as we say. We hope things doesn't escalate in Nigeria, especially as so many tension keeps building up on a daily basis. APC and the NWC fails to zone the National Assembly seat. Remember, we talked about this yesterday, and it seems that if that doesn't get zoned, we might then end up having Muslim throughout the whole tenure of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It seems that Buhari is still pushing Agenda 2050. Agenda 2050. You probably have to leave the project to Tinubu. If he's going to be the next president-elect at the moment until 29th of May, when he's fully in there, then we can continue to use the word president. Federal government project a $33,000 per capita GDP. President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday in Abuja launched the Nigerian Agenda 2050, declaring that its implementation would ensure that Nigeria attains a per capita GDP of $33,328 per annum to place her among the top middle-income economies globally by 2050. Buhari said the plan will increase the real GDP growth by 7%, create 165 million new jobs, reduce the number of Nigerians living in poverty to 2.2 million in 2050 from 83 million. Well, it is very easy to put this in paper, but in reality, it would take a lot of sacrifice if that is going to be in reality, as we do know. The launch occurred shortly before this week's executive committee meeting that was held at the chamber. It comes about 7 weeks after the FEC approved the policy document last 2 months, March 15, and nearly 3 months after the National Economic Council endorsed the agenda. We have a lot of brilliant people that sit and write all this and debate it, but I believe more Nigerians will probably die before 2050. So more Nigerians are saying, take care of us now, and probably 2050, we can see how that is going to happen. Let's go straight again because time is fast spent. Federal government disconnect the disco from the national grid over debt. Wow. Imagine that the situation of electricity. On my way to the studio yesterday, again, I was, making a joke, with some of our listeners by my, platform, and we were actually debating, pure water, tuture. Most Nigerians, love the pure water because that is the only form of way you can buy the water. If you're going to buy a bottled water, quite expensive. But I was saying that the pure water that was given to me was not cold, and I would definitely have to sue the seller and then I will have to make that through the local government. But the question is, 774 local government 774 local government, does any of these local government even have a kind of a complaint section where you can make complaint through the email or make a phone call? And these are so many reasons. But why is the federal government disconnecting DISCO from the national grid over debt? Millions of electricity consumers may be plunged into darkness in coming weeks as the federal government, via the transmission company of Nigeria and the market operator, have begun a massive disconnection of debtor electricity distribution. What actually happened is, most of these individuals that bought these, part of the, the electricity in Nigeria do not even have the capacity in the first place. But according to findings, show that development followed the notice of disconnection from the grid that was served on some of the DISCO by the market operator. According to the MO, the division of the transmission company of Nigeria had informed some of the DISCOs, including the generating companies, of the disconnection plan due to failure to make remittance of the ancillary service bills. We hope that this situation can be resolved so that more Nigerians will not be in so much pain as they have already. We're going to go straight to the social media at 11:41. If you're listening to us, remember you can follow us on the Starr Radio UK. If you're sending money on to your loved ones, you might as well also say Starr Radio UK with the send waves is the best option as well. As we continue to monitor, the dying situation in Sudan, we're also saying that there's a lot going on in Nigeria that we hope that the international community will continue to look into as well. Tomorrow, here in UK, Ike Kirimadu, we're expecting, a final closure to hit as well. But according to Steve Ang, Steve Ang, as we do know, is a professor of applied economics at Johns Hopkins, and he had actually put something around Twitter this morning, and let's look at what he's saying on Nigeria, just as it does with so many countries. In Nigeria, Peter Obi's supporters are continue their protest against alleged election fraud. These alleged frauds saw President Buhari's handpicked man, Bola Tinubu, become the president-elect, and as we say, more Nigerians continue the protest as well. A police officer gives a student new pair of socks in Lagos. I've seen the video. It's quite, very interesting to see a traffic warden, changing the school uniform of some of the children. He must have watched them pass through so many days and weeks, and she realized that as a mother, if she can afford it, by changing their school, and they look very good. I'm seeing the video right in front of me. These are children heading to school where their new socks put on. But the question is, we hope they can maintain it, because that is going to be the way out. According to Ifeanyi Nworo, this could be anyone's child. Made it possible without Nigeria. This child will still be alive. Save your own life now that you can by ending Nigeria before Nigeria will end you as well. And there's so new date for the special sit-at-home of a total lockdown. We believe this is going to be from the 8th, 9th, the 10th, the 11th, quite a lengthy one there, next week, as the Biafra will be sitting at home as well. And the two more from the social media, another influencer, Momo says, Maurice_Moyi, soon we will get there. This was Nigeria in all of our glory before these old men destroy the country. They enjoy Nigeria, but won't allow the young people enjoy Nigeria. And he was, referring back to a rare footage of the Nigerian Airways 747 arriving at Heathrow, London in 1980. We've heard about the Nigerian Air. We've had all this has been on paper. There's no Nigerian airplane, and if you're traveling to Nigeria, you'll have to use those foreign airlines, and they could be very, very expensive. So in the 80s, some of these men enjoy the Nigerian Airways, but when it comes to some of them end up using it as taking their girlfriend to London, the whole Nigerian Airways collapse, and there's nothing called Nigerian Airways anymore today. Starr Radio UK, I will then come back to you, Archie and Frank, in the studio.
Wow. If you want to go, they have to be listening to stories that come from across Africa. It will shock you. But, Yomi, now, interestingly, there was this story about yesterday. We did talk about that, where the president-elect was said to have gone to Wike's state Now, apparently, when it got to Wike say, now, Wike is asking for 80 billion naira. He said Tinubu has responded to the River State Governor Wike Nyesom's demand for the refund of 80 billion naira used for the infrastructure development of federal roads in the state. And he saying, I owe you nothing. So they started.
Well, Wike is leaving anyway, so he's probably trying to get the money for the next governor of the state. River State itself is an oil state, so you'll expect that River State should be top notch, when it comes to the state. But we do know that, like I said, Wike was very, very clear from the day one that he's not going to endorse Atiku Abubakar, and he actually endorsed Tinubu. And I can see how Tinubu is been able to travel down there, even though he's not yet in from May 29. So, but Tinubu have told him, I'm not owing you any money, and that literally means that, maybe it's just for the joke part of it, but we do know that Wike I listened to Tinubu this morning, and he was giving all the praises for the structure Wike did to make sure that APC won the state for him.
And we know Wike is actually PDP.
PDP, yeah. He was PDP. The one against Atiku. Therefore. Okay, listeners, it's quite an interesting development there. We'll have to bring the updates from Nigeria to a close. But I want us to, once we come back, I want you to tell me about the population of the various African countries and the world as a whole. Do you think that has impacted our growth? Because if you look at the number of people who were in existence in Nigeria or in Ghana during independence, there were not that much, okay, or not many. And now we have a boom. And now, do you think that maybe whatever we were having, was able to go around or was enough for us because we were not that many? And now that we are too many, let me put it that way, we are not able to meet that. So what do you think that population has actually impacted us when it comes to economic growth and the challenges that we are going through as a continent? Let me hear from you. And again, when it comes to the electricity companies where Yomi is talking about disconnections that's going to be going on, would you rather have that meter, a smart meter, or here we have smart meters, but pay as you go? Let me put it that way. Yeah, pay as you go. So you're not indebted. I know I have only 10 naira. Prepaid meter. So I have 10 naira. I put 10 naira credit on it, and I have to manage that so that tomorrow you don't come and tell me that
the light doesn't get into it, even if you put the 10 naira there. That's the problem. So even if you put the 10 naira in there, the electricity still doesn't get into it. So you might have 20 naira, which I remember, I do pay as you go, in the flat that I rented in Nigeria, and each time I'm there or I'm not there, we make sure that there's money on it. And so many times we have enough money, but there's no light.
So what's the point? They let them come and charge you that you use it. Okay, Yomi, before you go.
Well, Frank and Archie takes you to the rest of the segment. It is Friday as we're looking up to the big event here in London, the coronation. But we still have another 48 hours before Saturday, where Starr Radio UK will be giving you all the news on the airline. Stay tuned with Starr Radio UK. I'll be back again tomorrow. But for now, remember that 40 years to repay back. I'll probably be in my 80s. I don't know how old you're going to be. You might want to put that in the comment section. I'll leave you with Frank and Archie to debate the rest.
All right, Yomi, thank you very, very much. Listeners, that has been Mr. Olayomi Koiki in our North London studios bringing you updates from Nigeria. Like we said, you have any questions or anything, suggestions or anything of the sort, feel free to post that and then we will continue with it. Okay, now let's do this song.
I'm going to come back later. Got to go now. Mokibu Gwe Lori timeline Peluani Wakati from, Amasoro Nipa depth, which is the most important key for any economy. Mokiyomo Yoruba, my name is Olayomi Koiki. Have a great afternoon. Kaloje lunch. For telling us more about the ways and ways. So I can print the one. Okay, no problem. And then Mokiyawa, Christina Ademola, and the rest of you as well. Comrade Plan B, thank you. Have a very, very good afternoon and bye from this side. Anything on our Instagram, shout out to every one of us. Appreciate you for all the time spent. Yawa Abiola Foluke, Star 80, Kemi 6258, and the rest of you as well. So after later, just before probably an hour or so, I just need to tidy up a few things in the house, and then we will come back for the live proper program. I was already this new 40 years time of on deck, but Nigeria before then. If you're still praying for Nigeria, well, wish you good luck. I will pray for Nigeria more. Nigeria is not worth praying for. We can pray for a peaceful exit, but praying for Nigeria is just a waste of time. Thank you so much, Olakunle. Bye for now. I'm not I can mute the sound the Star Radio here. That was, I don't know whether that was feeding through or not. I'm not if the sound was feeding through. Bye for now, everybody.